All right, if anybody is here, I am trying this again. Sorry about all of the issues that seem to happen tonight. I'm not quite sure what happened because it wouldn't even let me end the original stream. So I'm on here now, and I am going to go ahead and put everything back. I had every single device out, do Google searches for what I needed to do to fix our stream. So, but now I am here. I'm going to go ahead and just pull out a journal. I'm going to see if anybody does go ahead and join me. So I'll give you guys just a couple minutes. I'm hoping it will pop up in your YouTube to know that I'm live again. So if you come in, just let me know that you're here. Like I said, technical problems. This is one of the reasons that I have resisted doing any sort of live video, because I was so worried about all the different technology and keeping my dogs quiet and all of those kinds of things. So, oh, I see someone. I am. If you can hear me, let me know. It appears that it's working from my side, but this is what happened the first time. Our sound wasn't working, and I went to try to fix it. Oh, yay. I'm so glad. I went to fix the sound the first time, and that's when something happened to the video, and then YouTube kicked me out, and so I'm glad that it's working good this time. So, and I'm glad that you're here. I'm hoping that some of our other friends will hop back on. A couple of them had texted me, so I'm going to let them know that I'm back and that it's working. And then we will go ahead and get started with our challenge for this month. I had a couple things planned, so I may not do them all, and I may try this again next week if I get brave again. So I'm going to go ahead. I just need to gesso real quick because I had gessoed in a different book, and then when I put it down, it's one of my larger journals, and I quickly realized that it was completely off the screen because the journal is too big. And that's probably why I've never filmed anything in that book before, because you're only able to see the middle of the pages because it's the large Strathmore book. So this one is just Dylusion's large journal. Sorry. The Dylusion's, the one that has the craft cover, and then it has this great manila paper. So that's what I'm working in. This little bit of green here that's up at the top, that was just some bleed over from the page before this. So it'll get covered up once I start working, but I just wanted to get a really thin layer of gesso down. It is always something. Always something. I've gotten so used to doing recorded videos, and those, if I have technical issues, I can just go back and re-record them. It's not quite the same on live. Hello, ladies. Welcome, welcome. I was just gessoing real quick while we were waiting because I had switched journals. I had gessoed my large journal, and then I realized that it filled the entire screen and then some, so you couldn't see everything. So I just went back to my normal Dilutions journal that I enjoy working in. So this is just the one with the craft cover. I think it's 9 by 12, maybe. It's the largest Dilutions one that they have. I wish they came out with a bigger one. I also wish they came out with a size in between, because they have that large one and then they have this size. So I would like something in between these two, but I'm pretty sure they're not going to do that for me. So, but you know, one day. Here, while I'm waiting for my gesso to dry, I can show you guys. This is Diane Black Journal that she released earlier this year. And Ranger had sent me one, and I've enjoyed working in it a lot more than I thought I would. I wasn't really sure about a black background, but I really like it. And this one, you can kind of see in the light. I actually used her shimmer black paint on top of the black paper. And it's just like, it's almost like a texture that I use through a stencil. These pages were inspired by Denise Lush. If you follow her, she did a lot of these cut through. So there's little peekaboo windows that sometimes you see. So I had to do one of those pages. Of course, these are my weird little faces. I have a old theater magazine, and I found all of these faces in there. And then I did some black and whites. This is one of my favorite quotes. Decaf coffee is like a hooker who wants to cuddle. My mom did not find this quote funny at all. And I even did just a little landscape in there, again, with the shimmer paint, so you can kind of see that shine in there. So that's as far as I've gotten in here, and I've just tried using some sprays. This is actually some of the oxide, because I wanted to see how that looked on the black. So just a quick little peek while the gesso is drying. Now I'm pretty sure it's dry. So remember, if you guys want to work along with me, feel free. And if you'd rather just watch and hang out, and thank Debbie. That was my view when we were in North Carolina, so I couldn't help but be inspired to paint some mountains. So now that my gesso is dry, I am going to go ahead and work on week 1 of my art journaling challenge for this month. So if you're on my newsletter list, which I'm assuming you all are, I did a challenge for the month of June called Heat Up Your Art Journal. And what I wanted to do was, I know I've been a little neglectful with my art journal because I've been making so many books lately. And so I wanted to get back into my art journal, and I started thinking that some of you might be the same way. So I wanted to go ahead and give us a little jump start and something to do. So week 1's prompt was to pick your favorite color. You all know this is my favorite. And then pick 2 other colors that were fairly close to it. So if I'm picking teal, I could have picked greens. I could have picked blues. I could even pick yellow because it's close enough. But I didn't want to pick anything that's on the opposite side of the color wheel. So if you look at your color wheel, you have your cool colors on one side. You have your warm colors on the other side. And then you have your yellows and your purples. I call these the fence sitters because they're right in between. Like, you can have a purple that leans more towards the cool side, or you can have a purple that leans more towards the warm side. And the same with yellow, because you can have something that leans more green and something that leans more orange. So, but when you look at it and you have your cools and your warms, the way to make brown, and not a pretty brown, really quickly, is to go across that fence. So if you imagine your fence in the middle, so if you take your blue and your orange, you're going to get brown. Your green and your red, you're going to get brown. And even your fence sitters, so your purple and your yellow, will also make an awful shade of brown. So what I said was, to pick a color that you like and then look around it. So, so I picked 2 shades of green that'll go with my teal. And the reason I did this, I know this seems like a very simple prompt, but I really wanted us just to get in our journals and do something. So I didn't want anybody to feel overwhelmed, or if they were just starting art journaling, I didn't want anybody to feel like this was just too much. And I also thought this would be a great way for us just to make some backgrounds so that then when we have more time to work, we can go ahead and we can create our backgrounds and have them ready. So when we do feel like working on something, we already have something on the page and we're not staring at a blank page. So I'm going to just start out with my teal, my favorite color. I'm going to make the teal be the predominant color on this page. I'm just using a wet baby wipe because to me, that's one of the easiest ways. I just want to get some color on. I'm not really thinking about what this page is going to be yet. I really just want to create some pretty backgrounds. So with my 3 colors, one thing I think about is I want this to be my predominant color. So I'm going to consider this my large. That's how I think about it in my head. And then of these other 2, I think that I'm going to make this green be my medium. So that's the one that I'll have kind of a middle amount of. And then this lime green is going to be my small. So I'm going to have the least amount of this one. So that's the way I think about it. I tend to do that. Those of you who have been in class with me know that I tend to do that with stencils too. Like I want a large, a medium, and a small stencil. It just adds variety. And to me, it makes your page look interesting rather than having equal amounts of a color. I just find it more interesting to the eye. So I have that teal on there. I'm going to go ahead and come in with my medium, which I said was this medium green. It is technically Emerald Green by Amsterdam. And I'm just going to add a medium amount of that. What does that mean? My eye will be able to tell me when I have a medium amount. And you can see I'm kind of coming into the teal a little bit, so I am cutting out a little bit of that teal. But this is really just the beginning. So I'm not too worried about it. That may be a little too much. I just grabbed a different baby wipe so that I don't have all that paint sitting on top. All right, so that's a good medium amount to me. And then I'm going to grab this yellowish green, also by Amsterdam. And I'm going to add the small amount of this one. And you can see these are not covering the background. So I am going to have to layer, but I love to layer. So that is not an issue for me. I have never, I'm not going to say never. I have probably very rarely created a page that was a single layer. So now I have color on. It's not pretty color, but it's on there. I still have a little bit of green left on here. So I think I'm just going to come back in. Since I'm putting this on fairly thin, it will dry pretty quick. I'm going to try to not use the dryer because that sounds awful on a live video. And I'm not going to chance muting anything. remember, if you guys have questions as we're going along, feel free to just pop them in. I do have the laptop next to me, so I'm trying to pay attention to any questions that might come up as much as I can. So again, I just have that on there. I think what I want to do next is grab a stencil because I love them. And I picked out a couple. So this is an old one. I believe it's from Crafters Workshop. But I know Diane Reevely has a similar diamond-shaped one. And I believe Stencil Girl also has something that looks similar to this. It may not be as large because Stencil Girls usually tend to be 9 by 12. But you can find something that's similar. And it's not really important which stencil you're using. You just want to have something. I picked this one because it's a pretty uniform pattern all over. So I can just start to create. And you'll see I'm using my baby wipe again to stencil because I don't really want a super clear image. I do want just something that barely reads in the background. I'm just going to put out a little bit of that teal and also pick that up with my baby wipe and come back in and add some more of my stencil. So in week 1, I didn't give you any details, but because again, I would rather you pick up your journal and do something rather than have 10 steps that you have to follow for week 1. I just want us to get going. And I know with summertime, some of us get distracted because kids are out of school or maybe kids are home from college or summer vacation, those kinds of things. So I wanted us to have something we could do in steps so you don't have to feel like, oh gosh, I need to have 5 hours to sit down. No, my chaos coordinator is not here right now. She's online, but she's not here to monitor my questions. So if I had to pick my second favorite color, what would it be? So that one I think will change over time. Right now, I would say my second favorite right now is Payne's Gray. But a couple weeks ago, I would have told you that it was like this poppy red that I found because it looks so good with teal. Basically, I like colors that look good with teal. So I think that would be my second favorite color right now, but that does kind of change. Teal never changes. It's at least let's hope not, because I did tattoo it on my arm. So if my favorite color changes, I'm going to have a reminder that I always liked teal because it's on my arm. Even though nobody else can read it, I could just tell you it was something else, but I know what it says. But teal, turquoise, cobalt, anything in that family. So you can see, if you haven't ever stenciled with a baby wipe before, you can see the difference. And you see I had to work a little harder. But I like this kind of grungy look. Now that I'm looking at it, here's another thing you'll find. I look at these colors and I'm like, oh yeah, I like those. And once I got that yellow green on there, I don't like that anymore. So I'm pretty sure that will be going away. But to me, this is another thing that I learned is that some of these, when I put colors down, sometimes I really like them together. Even though I love this green, I don't necessarily like it on this page. So to me, it's always just a learning. So I have this down. I want to talk about week 2 because the prompt for week 2 was to add some collage. And so I wanted to show you different ways of doing that. Of course, one way is if you have a piece of ephemera, say something from Dina's Collage Collective or things like that, and you want to put that down, you can do that. But I want to show you another way that I like to use collage. So I love book pages, don't we all? So I grabbed a couple. This is a newer dictionary, so you can see how white it is. This is a cookbook from the 60s, so you can see it's kind of yellowish. I usually keep a variety handy because sometimes the white looks better, sometimes this off-white, aged look looks better. I actually think I'm going to use the white tonight. And since this is a bigger page, I can go ahead and I can use some bigger sections. So I'm just going to add 3 because I like odd numbers of things. And for this one, I also like kind of hugging the edges. So you can see I use the straight lines of the pages to help me place them. I'm just going to glue them down really quick. I have my matte medium. So there's a couple of, you can always use a glue stick. I just find that a glue stick sometimes, it's more work when you're doing big pieces like this. So this is one of my new favorite gel mediums that I like to use. It's by Amsterdam. It comes in a little tub, and it's matte. I'm not sure if they have a gloss. And honestly, I ordered this from Michaels because I wanted to try some different brands of matte medium, because I usually use a fluid matte medium. But lately I've been finding that I want something that's a little thicker. So I'm going to go ahead. To make it quick, I've started using these little foam brushes. Typically, I would have just rubbed it on with my finger. But when I'm wanting to work fast, I just grab a foam brush, because if I forget to wash it out, I can just throw it away and I don't feel so bad. But you can see how quick that goes down. Once I get it all down, I will come back and put a layer of matte medium over it. I just like to seal the paper, because if you're adding paint or ink or anything really over top of it, it'll seep in to the paper a little differently than it would sit on top of this acrylic paint that we're using. So I like to go ahead and seal it on top so that I know what's going to happen when I put something over top of it. So I got those down really quick. I've always resisted these foam brushes because I didn't want to be wasteful, and I don't like cleaning things. But so many times I'll use my brush, my regular paintbrush, but then I'll end up having it glued down because I forgot to clean it or whatever the case. So now I'm using these little foam brushes, and I'm trying to remember just to throw it in my water, because then it gives me some extra time. So I did coat of matte medium underneath, coat of matte medium on top. It's going to dry super fast because, again, it's going on thin. Now, these pages are standing out a lot from the page. And if that's a look that you like, then you can leave it that way. But again, I'm going to show you different options. So I'm just pouring out a little bit of gesso. You could do the exact same thing with white paint, but I always have gesso handy. And I'm going to come in and start disguising these edges. And I'll even come a little bit over the print, so it starts to work its way into the background. You could do it with a baby wipe. It's always just easier for me to kind of dab my finger in. And to me, it looks a little more organic if I'm able to do it this way. So, but I just want to blend those edges. Again, I'm coming over with more paint, so it's going to kind of disappear anyway. But you can already see where the edges are starting to vanish so that they aren't so much into standing out in front of you. And again, if that's the look you're going for on this page, then you can leave them the way they are. But since I don't know where this page is going, I know that I tend to like just knocking this back a little bit so it's not quite so in your face. So I'm going to grab that baby wipe again. I'm wondering if I have enough paint in here. Yeah, so I have a little bit of paint left. So as it's mixing with the gesso, I'm able to add a little bit of color to those pages. Book pages are the best. And I love getting different ones. I recently went out with a friend and we were antiquing, and I specifically told her to not let me buy any books. But when I picked up 3 music books, I explained that I didn't have any music pages. And she said that she wasn't there to judge me. So, so I did buy some more books, but there were music. I didn't have music. Now I'm going to try adding, see how different that greenish yellow looks than when I put it on straight. Now I'm starting to like it. So I think I'm going to do that again and just move a little bit of that around. Again, I think of putting my colors in 3, 5 places just to me, what I think about with color is if my eye starts here, this green is going to kind of lead me around. So that's why I like to move my colors around. Now I'm going to come back in with my same stencil. And let's see if this yellow green is still, it is. It's still a little wet. So I'm able to pick up a little bit of it. It also helps because I put that matte medium over the paper. So you can see like right here in this little diamond where the paper is, I actually was able to lift all the paint off. This one too, because it had that matte medium over it. So again, I'm using the same pattern, but now I'm removing color. So I'm repeating, but in a different way, if that makes any sense. But I feel like this area is a little lost. So I think I'll try, I just had a little bit of the white gesso left on that baby wipe. I'm just going to try stenciling that. Because what's the worst thing that could happen? I have to cover it up. Oh yeah, I like that. So it had all 3 colors. That's what all 3 colors plus gesso makes. It's a color mixing lesson today too. But this is one way I like to add a little bit more texture to my background. So now I can already start to see, once everything's dry, I just come back and I cut any book page that's kind of hanging over the edge so that I have a neat corner, but I usually wait till the end to do that. So again, beginnings. This is not a finished page by any means. I think though, and remember how I had the large, medium, and small? I'm going to go ahead and come back in with my large and add a little bit of that back in because I feel like it disappeared a little. So I'm just going to dab little bits here and there. Some of it is going to cover up stenciling that I just did. That's no big deal. I'm going to knock back that book page a little bit more. Maybe come over that yellow spot that I'm not totally in love with. I am going to give you guys a preview of our prompt for next week so that you get some bonus for sticking with me tonight through all of the technology issues. So when I'm working in my journal, I really would get to this point and I would just kind of put this away and I would grab another book because I feel like I have something on there. So when I want to work, I can start somewhere. So I typically have pages like this. So here's another example. I think this was actually a cleanup page because I had some extra paint. But I will typically leave pages that have something on them, but that I have a place to get started. Because I'm already seeing some doodles that can go around there and things like that. So let me give you the quick preview for next week. So next week will be working on focal points. So I'm going to talk about how I prepare focal points kind of ahead of time. I usually have like a couple boxes of them so that then I get a page to a point where I really like the background. I can just dig through that box and find something that works with that page. So if you follow me on Instagram, you saw today that I'm doing the fodder challenge that's on Instagram. And one of the first class was with Megan, and she did paper dolls. So I've done these before, and I've done them with stamped faces, usually Diane's stamped faces or Dina's. And then you use any sort of collage paper, gel prints, book pages, anything you have to create their clothing. But this time I have a stack of magazines, so I thought I'll go through and find. So I thought she was really interesting. So this is the part from the magazine. I added the crown. I added a skirt. This one, the only thing from the magazine is the face. These were actually from an old theater magazine that I had that some of the faces in that black journal are from. And then I used book pages. This is some tissue paper, jelly prints, just anything out of my collage box I put together, and I can create these little paper dolls. More magazine and gel prints. And then yesterday I was going through Vogue, and I'm not sure why, but there was a deer in Vogue. So my deer became a paper doll. Now she will not fit in this journal, but my large Strathmore or Dina Wakley, she will definitely fit in. So, but these are the kinds of things I like to do, and I like to do lots of them at a time. So like yesterday, I created 4 or 5 of the paper dolls. The day before, I created 4 or 5. So when I find something new that I want to make, I'll go through and I will make a lot of them. And then, I mean, honestly, if she fit on this page, I mean, if I cut off the bottom, she would fit, but that has the quote on it, so I don't want to do that. But, I mean, look how different that is. Just that background that I don't consider finished, but just laying your focal point on top. That's the other thing that's nice is when you have a bunch of things that you can kind of audition, you can just sit here and, you know, go through and find what you think looks best instead of trying to make something on the fly. So next week, we're going to talk more about how I do that and everything. I'm going to move this journal and I'm going to grab one of my other journals. Right now, I have 9 current journals because I have a problem. I just can't seem to stay in one size. So this journal is Dina Wakley's newest one. It is all craft. So cover and every page on the inside is craft. And I love craft. So, but But let's play around. So a lot of these pages, what I do is I go through with sprays and stencils, and here's some drywall tape. I just go through and I create a bunch of backgrounds. So then when I want to work in this journal, I can. So here's a perfect example of collage. I added some gesso around it. So now it's just sitting there waiting for me. This was some gold paint that I had left over, some black. I even added this little flap that I'm going to use. But I'm going to use this page that has some white gesso on it. The one thing about this brown journal is it does change the colors of your paint. So if you have a white background behind a transparent paint, it's going to be brighter than if it's on a brown background. So I just want to work on the gesso tonight so that it's a lot easier to see the colors. So another way that I like to add color to my background is I'm actually going to use, I think I'm going to use this one. Yeah, I'm going to use, this is Dina's 2-inch brush. So I'm going to use this one because you'll see how quickly I can get color. So remember the small, medium, large? You can forget that for now because I'm going to create some stripes in the background, and I'm going to use all 3 colors pretty equally to create that background. So I'm going to start with the teal. And I'm doing that because I don't really mind if the teal contaminates the other colors, because remember, they're all pretty close together on the color wheel. So I have some paint on there, and I'm just going to come over my gesso and paint a stripe. I'm going to grab some more teal. I'm going to do all one color at a time. So I'm just kind of measuring out about where my stripes are going to be. And I can always come back and fill in if I need to. But I think I'll have about 3 of those. Now I'm going to come in with that medium green, the emerald green I was using. These are the same 3 colors I started with. And I'm going to go ahead and add another stripe. Now I almost flipped over my brush, but if you notice, there's only teal on that side and the green is on that side. So if you're using the same brush, you just have to remind yourself where the color is that you're working with. And again, remember, this only works because I'm using colors that are pretty close together. I'm going to get some of that off because that yellowish green is going to pick up a lot of the other colors I use, and I want to try to keep it as pure as I can. So I'm adding that yellowish. And see, I got a little tainted there, but I'm okay with that. I mean, who knows what focal point is going to end up on here. But see how quick that was just to lay down a background? Of course, I had the gesso on there already. And if you look right here, you can see where a little bit of that teal got on the brown, and it's a different color. It's not a bad color. It's just different because it's tinted by the brown that's behind it. So again, I would probably leave this, let it dry, and then it's a great piece that if I come through and I have some collage pieces that I want to think about using, you know, I already have something that I can think, oh, is that going to work? No, that doesn't look good. So then I can go ahead and add something in. So that was quick background number 2. Let's see if I can squeeze in one more. So this is Dina's blue journal. I am very close to the end of this one. And I'm going to use, this is the white paper. So if you haven't seen this journal, it has 3 kinds of paper. So it has, let me find, it has this white, watercolor paper that's a very rough watercolor paper. I've torn this edge. And then you have a manila burlap page. There's a full white page. And then you have denim. So just like your jeans, there's a light denim, and then there's the darker denim on the other side. So I like this journal because it does challenge you to use different surfaces. You'll see that most of the time, the denim I tend to use for collage because it holds gel medium really easily. So I'll use that one a lot. I also use it for if I have tags and I want to kind of showcase them, I'll go ahead and put those in. I also do that on the burlap pages. With the burlap pages, if you do glue anything to it, remember to put some wax paper or deli paper behind it because it's burlap, so the gel medium will go right through. But so this journal is a challenge to work in just because it is so many different surfaces. The Dylusions journal is, I think, the easiest. And if you're just starting art journaling, that's definitely the one to pick. So let's come back. I want to find a full white page. I'm just going to add a clip because since I'm so far at the back of this book, it wants to close on me. So I could gesso this, but I'm not going to. So the first thing I want to start with is when you're picking your colors, I can't remember if in the email I said paint, but remember you have other things. You have ink, you have ink sprays. So I actually grabbed 2 semi-related colors from my ink pads. So this is definitely my teal. And then close to that on the scale is cobalt or a navy blue. So I have these, and I also just grabbed what I call my texture stamps. These 2 at least came from an old company called Paper Bag Studios. They used to sell like 8.5 by 11 sheets of stamps, and you just cut them apart. This one is a very old one from Prima Designs. I got at a Finivar workshop, and it's actually a French script. And then this one, I'm not 100% sure. I think it might be one of the French companies like Carabelle, but you really just want something that isn't an image. It's more like a mark making tool. So I'm going to go ahead and start with that teal. I think it's actually called aquamarine. Yeah. So it's Ranger Archival Aquamarine. And no, Karen, no underwear. It's a naked page. There's no gesso on it. I'm just going wild and crazy tonight. It's what happens when YouTube doesn't like you. It sends you a little crazy. I'm really glad my microphone wasn't working while I was trying to get back on, because we may have had to put a rating on my video. I was not a happy camper. And I will have to apologize to my husband later because he came and asked if he could help. And that may not have been the best thing to ask. So I switched. I'm at the cobalt, and I grabbed that French stamp. Unfortunately, I have not taken care of this stamp. So you see what shape it's in. I think it got stuck in a drawer. But for what I want to use it for, it works. So you may ask, Mary, why are you doing this? To me, as always, I say over and over again, I like layers. I like texture. So this creates that. And if you're the type who just comes and stares at a white page, this is a great way. So especially when I buy new stamps, I will pull them all out. I'll grab my ink pads. I'll grab a page in my journal, and I will just cover them with this so that I get to try out the new stamps. I get to kind of season them with ink, and I also get the start of something. So I'm just coming in with this third one. This one looks like little typewriter keys. And I always like having circles on my page. So there's, as you see, there's no rhyme or reason. as if there's ever any rhyme or reason to what I do. Why do you do that? I don't know. It looks good, or it will look good. So I have something on there. Now I can come in with, I'm not going to do sprays because I don't want to have to set up because sprays go everywhere. So let's come back to our paint. I will get a clean baby wipe. And I'm going to focus on just the teal now. And because I'm applying this with the baby wipe, it doesn't really matter how opaque the paint normally is. The baby wipe will make it a little more transparent. So even where that heaviest layer of paint is, there's still a little bit of stamping that's peeking through. And again, I don't want to be able to see every single inch of this stamping, but I want there to be something so you don't feel like you're just staring at a sheet of scrapbook paper that's all one color. I want there to be a little bit of variety, a little bit of something that peeks out and makes you want to look closer. And you can see how much different this paper is than the paper in the Dylusions, because you can really see the texture. Now, if you come over this with a layer of heavier gesso, you do get rid of some of that texture. But again, if you don't want the texture, then don't work in this journal. That's kind of my thought. When I work in this journal, I don't expect the paper to behave like my Dylusions journal because it's a completely different thing. To me, it's nice to have a variety of surfaces because it just challenges you. So I have that layer on. Yes, teal, what a surprise. I can't believe I picked that color up. I'm surprised I have any. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to add a little bit of stenciling. My desk really started out clean, but it's already a disaster. So another type of stencil I like to use are these ones that are really, really open. So I don't know exactly what they're called. If these are more of a negative stencil, but you're actually going, there's more open area. I don't know how to explain it. So I'm kind of stenciling around a flower as opposed to stenciling the flower. I don't know, but bigger openings. So I want to go ahead and grab that. I'm not going to stencil the whole page, but I am going to grab, I think I'm going to do white because I don't want to introduce these other two colors. So I'm going to grab my gesso again. And this time I am going to grab one of my little makeup sponges because they're handy. The other thing I sometimes use, but I don't have handy, is my Ranger tool. This one just happens to have an ink on it. And I don't want to dig around in the drawer right now to find a clean one. So I'm just going to grab, oh, look, there's a little bit of teal in it. What a surprise. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of this. I don't necessarily want to be able to see every single flower, or again, I just want to start building up that layer. And I think I'm going to stick mostly to the outside edges. I don't know why. Maybe next time I'll only do the inside. I'm just thinking maybe I want to create some sort of a frame shape on this page. So I'm doing really loosey-goosey stenciling. So you can see, I mean, There's really no, that one might be a flower, but otherwise it just looks like some sort of texture. And the one thing I like is because this page is so bumpy and I applied quickly with the baby white, see all this white that was left in the middle? To me, it blends those two together now so that white doesn't stand out as much. So I have that down. I can still see a little bit of my stamping, especially that dark blue. The teal has kind of vanished, but that's okay. I still see a tiny bit of it, but I'm completely fine with that. So let's see. I want to add a little bit of collage to this one too, so we can combine week 2 in here. If you find black and white striped tissue paper, buy it. Buy it all. I actually got this one in a package that I got, and I have been hoarding it. And anytime I run into a store, I keep looking for more black and white striped. I could make my own, but it's so nice to be able to just grab a piece and pull it off. So again, I'm just going to add 3 little pieces. I still have my medium here. Excuse my arms. I threw my sponge brush in my water, so I'm just going to kind of wring it out so it's not super, super wet, putting that medium down. I do have a whole pile of them here, so I could grab another one, but this one's right here. And so I just squeeze it out so it doesn't have all that extra water in. And when you, just remember, when you do tissue paper, it wants to fold up, so you do have to kind of be gentle with it and expect that you're going to get glue all over your hands. So just adding that little piece on there. The reason I wanted to use tissue is, especially, you can see it a little bit now where you can still see that white behind it, but as it dries, I find that you can see even more because it's almost like the white part of the paper becomes more transparent. And I always like to add black and white to every page, so this is an easy way to get some black in. And of course, I love stripes, especially when I combine them with something like this floral shape, because I like the change. So a little bit of geometric, a little bit of organic. I will go ahead and seal those in just with a really thin coat over the top, because then if I add anything again over top of it, I have control over how the paper is going to react. And I look at this, I think I need to stencil again because now the black screams at me too much. For those of you who have ever wondered, oh, I wonder how Mary works at home. This is exactly how I work. I have no idea how anything's going to turn out and if I'm going to like it. But I haven't found a page yet that I wasn't able to fix at some point when I didn't like it. So I'm just adding, I'm not completely covering. I'm just coming around the edges. I did try to line up that stencil. Oh yeah, I like that better. So just that little bit. Now, I like when I look at a page, I can't necessarily tell which layer you start it with. So when I look at this, it's like, oh, did you stencil and then put the paper? No, because the stencil's on top of the paper too. But so I like that kind of unknowingness, or I guess that's not a word. Oh, Debbie already looked. Amazon has black and white striped tissue paper. Don't everybody else go and order it because I'm still here. And it would be rude to grab my phone and order it. But I do need to order some more because this is my very last piece. And I have been hoarding it. So got a little bit of collage. I pulled this out, but then we didn't use it. Remember drywall tape? such a great thing to use because it adds texture. It adds, usually I don't put matte medium over this because then the paper does react. This is one of those instances where I do want the paper to react in a different way. So that's another thing you can use for collage. And then, I mean, collage is so much. I mean, there's all kinds of napkins. I just got these, and these were in a Patreon pack for this month. I just really liked the birds and the leaves. And honestly, I look at this and I'm like, ooh, I should watercolor that design. So there are many inspirations, but collage with napkins, again, they're nice and thin so you can see layers behind. But I think we have some good starts to pages. And if you have multiple journals when you're working on backgrounds, go ahead and get them all out and use the same colors. Because if you have your stuff out and your brushes are getting dirty, why not get a bunch of backgrounds done? And you can see they didn't really take that long. You can just put one off to the side to dry. And then when you're ready to keep working, they're already there waiting for you. So remember, next week we'll be talking about focal points. So I don't, because the live tonight was a trial, I was thinking of doing one during the 4th week of the challenge. So then we'll cover focal points and also the last week, which is finishing touches. And so I may do another live that last week. So let me know if you guys like, I picked YouTube Live because a lot of people were saying that they don't have Facebook anymore. Instagram Live, because of the format, it's really hard to fit a large journal in because the screen goes this way instead of this way. So that's why I picked YouTube Live. So as long as I can figure out how to make it work, right? So we'll talk about focal points. We'll talk about finishing touches. We'll talk about what's going to happen after this. So I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight and sticking through all of our issues. And hopefully we won't have them again. So remember, if you ever have questions, feel free to DM me on Instagram, on email, wherever you can reach me. So I hope you guys have a great night, and I'll see you next time. Happy arting.